Let's say that you have a car company, you're making quite expensive cars. You realize that someone from just taking a pick here, San Francisco or California, is actually redesigning his car all the time. And you start to realize with great fear that the number of article number per vehicle is going down, down, down. We see that these electrical things that people like, despite we do good diesels here, is actually picking up in sales. Now he's a Chinese colleague called Build Your Future, for example, is getting into the game. Okay, what do they have? Well, Build Your Future has 2.8 million cars, and then the California guy is doing 1.8. So all of a sudden, it starts to actually chew up this segment. What do I need to do? I need to develop fast as hell. How do I develop fast as hell? Well, I turn around ideas into product and components in a very quick fashion. Then you start to realize that tool that gets stuck in a harbor on the other side of the globe is actually hindering your development.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Eurago Special. Today we have the pleasure to discuss a joint presence as a USP of the European high-pressure die casting industry. And we're very pleased to welcome Raphael Heilig with us. And the great thing for him is he's selling software to the die casting industry and has therefore an outside view on our industry and a viewpoint we probably most of us that are working on the field or the shop floors are unable to see. So welcome, Raphael, to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Maybe I start with a quick introduction of my person. I'm the owner and managing director of Terraport. We are a Munich-based software company that specializes in the analysis of product development processes. So basically, we offer software to enhance product development. We're on the market for over 20 years with a heavy focus on automotive industry in general. But we have in our portfolio also software solutions that are made for design for manufacturing and feature-based cost analysis, especially for the die cast industry. And in this sort of constellation, we are part of the Eurago's executive circle. Sort of, as you mentioned, as an outsider, but of course, sometimes as a contributor that exactly from that outsider role has a different view on things and can bring in different viewpoints and aspects.
Yeah, that makes it very interesting. So trying to get to the topic that was discussed around your table, the joint presence as an USP for the industry. As always, there's a definition of these table talks, and to set the stage a little bit, I read it up. Joint presence as the USP of the industry is about strengthening the self-confidence and market presence through collective action and emphasizing the essential role of die casting in the automotive industry. Promoting joint product responsibility, developing innovative products, optimizing the value chain, focus on expertise, offering solutions instead of material, emphasizing sustainability and development of unique position with OEMs. Quite ambitious. I really do understand what they mean. I have to see this initiative by the Eurogases. But then I'm very curious, how was the discussion going around your table, Mr. Heilig?
Well, my perception of the discussion, first of all, it was quite depressive. So you feel that there is a negative mood inside the die casting industry. There's a lot of frustration with numbers going down, the competition becoming stronger. So basically, I think instead of being depressive or negative on this thing, one should be brave to clearly address a statement. I mean, what sense does complaining make? It doesn't make things better. You just have to point out, hey, the situation is tough. What actually are we confronted with? And if you ask about, is there a unique USP, you have to go as far as to give a bold statement. Is there a justification for the existence of European die-cast industry? Because I don't know how many companies make sneakers, for example, inside of Europe. they're all made in Asia. And if you come to the statement, to the bold, maybe a little bit blasphemic statement, I like to come back and look at the, let's say, magic triangle of quality, time, cost. So we have talked about the strong competition. We probably in the European die-cast industry can price out competition. So the cost might be the most difficult factor to address, but of course you can address time and quality to compensate. And basically that's also where we as a software company focus on giving our customers a tool to shorten time to market, enhance the quality in an earlier stage of the product development process. And this is, I think, the point where this negative complaining point of view needs to be changed and be like a problem possibility. The mindset change needs to happen to make sure we make transparent in what a shitty situation we're in, and then get to work. What can we enhance? What are actually points we can work in? And I think time and quality are the 2 points that are easier to address for the European die-cast industry.
If you look at the buyers, the European car makers, they are under extreme cost pressure, that's for sure. But then quicker solutions is always better than solutions taking longer time. And given now that we see more and more Asian companies going into Europe to avoid the taxation from the CBAM and other things, the pressure is there. I also strongly believe they're getting here because they don't want every entity in China, for example. So that leads me to the conclusion. What you're saying is that you see digitalization as one of the key components to increase competitiveness and to be top of the game again. Is that the way I should understand it?
I definitely think so. And this goes way beyond also what we offer as software solutions. It's a general topic of, it's buzzwords, but they are there for a reason. We have to focus on topics like artificial intelligence and even easier big data. I mean, AI is maybe the thing in 5 to 10 years, but doing something good with your data can be done right here, right now. And this is, for me, also something that needs to be done. One aspect of it on the global situation, on the market, on KPIs that are public or more the market side KPIs, but also then on the other side, company internal data where you can derive more learnings from. I think this is a 1-2 punch that the die casting industry is not using enough yet.
I want to add a point to that, especially when we talk about things that are not being done. And I think the biggest thing when you have a volume going down and you're not starting a marketing and targeting campaign, then you really are into deep troubles, because then you have a outrunning pipeline that will be empty somewhere down the future. And I think there especially should be the first point to start implementing tools that were developed for a totally different field, like for social media marketing or other things that you really get in the business and implement things that works in other industries. What do you think about that?
No, I absolutely agree. It's a very good point. I talked before about making your own situation boldly transparent to yourself, and you can't negate that casting industry sort of is a traditional dusty, rusty industry. And it's not wrong to look at like a more recent developed industry to learn something from them. And especially what I like about what you mentioned, social media and digital marketing, what they do a lot, for example, is they have a lot of dashboards and measure a lot and compare how does marketing methodology A work against B. There's a smart saying, you can't manage what you don't measure. And this goes into the direction of big data. You have to develop KPIs that serve your business or your value. And if you don't do so, you're sort of like a person that tries to lose weight and doesn't have a scale and doesn't know about nutrition facts. Yeah, good luck. I mean, the only thing that you can do is eat less than yesterday, but you don't have a real goal and say, hey, I can drop a kilo in a month or whatever. So I really like the idea of also looking to other industry for getting incentives or ideas or inspiration on topics.
Yeah, but if you look at that, I mean, the casting industry, it has been pretty straightforward from 1967 up to Dieselgate. And then it started to go up and down and up and down. And the sinus curve seems to be just moving faster and faster and faster. So, I mean, decision making. There's one thing to trim your company. That's one thing, to get more out of your investment. The second thing is, as we discussed, to be the service partner where we see a clear trend towards digitalization. I mean, we got the simulation, you have your DFX methods, you have your casting planning. There's a lot of things where you can be a better partner. But then when it comes to the company decision, should we merge with someone? Should we go for another market? Should we do something? That requires a cockpit view. And you tangent a little bit into it, speaking about this cockpit view and so forth. But how about the cockpit view for the surrounding, meaning taking big data, where is the tariffs, who's gaining, and in a very much higher pace that maybe you need to check in every week or every month. Where is my world going based on things? I don't see anything like that in Europe right now.
We should. I mean, that's exactly a point where something like the Eurogos Executive Circle can like step up, because this data, I mean, company internal data, we can come back to that in a second, but there's always a problem with company internal data. Hey, you have to drop down your pants, let's say. You have to let somebody else look at your very intimate data to do something like consulting or something. Let's get to this in a second. But the market data, this is general public. It belongs to everyone. It just has to be collected in a meaningful way and, let's say, digested to be displayed in a way that it creates value. And why should every smaller foundry or every smaller mold maker do the job on their own? It costs to ramp up the knowledge. It costs to maintain. You have to contract experts. But then, like, what would it look like if Eurogos Executive Circle would join up to really say, hey, we want to develop something that is valuable to all of us. People have to contribute. It's a membership fee. It's a participation fee, but it's just a fraction of what everybody else would have to spend to make something like this available. And usually this is where kind of oftentimes software companies also come in when something like this exists. You could also draw up the scenario where a software company offers a market cockpit for foundries. But this is exactly the point where I think the market is too small for a third entity to step up, and the task is too big to be tackled by a single company, which are smaller companies in foundry industry. Why not tackle it with an association like it is the Eurogos Executive Circle, and try to install something that creates value and gives a head up against the competitor in joint force? Then we have a USP. Then we have something that we can really point at.
I really like that approach, that we now went full circle from defining where is the USP, and it comes back again to the old saying, knowledge is power. And if you have the right data to take a decision to rectify a large investment and see where you have to divide your business strategy, I think that's something where really an organization has an advantage. But the big question is, we already have foundry associations.
Yeah, I have also a hard time to understand why Eurogos should do this. We're paying memberships, all of us.
It's a question of two aspects. I mean, you know the scenario where somebody asks for volunteers. Volunteers, please take one step to the front. And then everybody takes a step to the back. And I think it's just a thing where we have to create a snowball that is big enough for things to get rolling, if that makes sense. If the entity is the Eurogos Executive Circle, if the entity is a foundry association, that doesn't play a role. The pain is there for the ones that are part of the circle. And if they meet up to complain well, why not meet up to create? Why not meet up to push? Why not meet up to do something? So a lot of time, I mentioned that, goes into the situation is bad, customers are hostile, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't change anything. And I think there needs to be a few brave ones that step up and just make the snowball start that the snowball rolls. And Eurogo's executive circle is just an example of where this could start. I mean, they did something. They did this future analysis with the Future Institute, which goes into the same direction. For me, this was like a little bit abstract. A KPI cockpit can be something more operative, more day-to-day business.
But if you look at the external factors that would be interesting, I mean, that happens so much. We are in the midst of a beginning of a trade war, and
it gets worse.
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at external points that could be useful to have in a cockpit, what do you reckon on that? Top of your head?
You mentioned things already. So situation about tax and customs regulation. It's situation. It can be price analysis of other markets. I mean, competitor regions. It can be impact on sustainability. Everybody always talks about the green industry, but what you really need is those KPIs that tell you how fast do I have to act, how much. And to really convert it into smart ratio of cost spent and value created or price justification, because sustainability always costs money.
Sometimes I think we miss out easy things like what is actually the inflation rate in a country which you are competing with.
Yeah.
Because that's a key point. If you see it start rushing, in a low-cost country somewhere in the globe, then the economy is overheated. Give it 18 months and they start to have a problem to invest.
Yeah, and then it also can be sort of current market situation tendencies. So basically from a customer of ours, I've heard that, especially in the mold making, China at the moment is only roughly 25 to 30% cheaper. And it doesn't even justify for certain complex tools thinking about giving the tool to China, because the headache that comes with it and the logistics and everything, communication doesn't justify that anymore. And this was a real big tier one supplier. So this wasn't just a corner case and somebody who had the insight. So it's an interesting situation to know that also it seems like the time has come where the Chinese need to become profitable, where they not only just like try to grow their capacity no matter what. But I think, of course, it's a complex topic, and there would have to be some time spent to find the right KPIs in such a platform, in such a can be an internet hosted intranet for the European Diecast Association.
But that's just as you mentioned, for example, that example from the tool makers, just 20% in difference. If you add the headache and the transport routes, maybe something is clogged up or ships get taken by pirates or whatever, and you miss your start by a week, a month, that outweighs the costs by a magnitude. Just having the security say, hey, we can build a tool in that quality you want, in the time frame you want, and even can take a sampling round to be really sure that your production start fits. And this is gold for a tool maker to market it like that.
I mean, the last 5 projects I've been involved in 2024, out of 5 projects, 3 have been delayed with more than 2 months because of the lack of containers from Shanghai Harbor. I mean, what should I say? What did it differ? 20,000 euros? I don't know, 20,000 euros with a 3 months delay with an angry customer. What is it worth? I mean, let's come on. It's with social taxes and stuff. It's 4 months of one guy in your foundry, and that is what you actually paid.
Just add up the man hours you need to divert the project, to change all the deadlines.
Yeah.
That is far more costs than spending it on a local supplier that will help you with the next development anyway.
Yeah. But one thing that I've been curious about this since 1997, and now you wonder, why do I bring up 1997? Well, that was the first time I tried to calculate the total cost of ownership of a die casting. I was a purchaser, and I was started to feel like, are we using the right scale here? And time after time after time, and believe it or not, the two of you are younger than I am, this was high fashion 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Everybody should do a total cost calculation. Everybody failed. And here I see a big point that it adds up to the profit and loss of the car maker, the total cost of ownership, in some way. And the only way you can actually do this is to use smart softwares. That's the only way, because the only thing you get when you launch a program for making a total cost calculation in a company, and believe me, I was a manager for 12 years, is a big fight between departments. Who is actually costing what? But at the end of the day, you have the top line, you have the profit, and you have the expense on top line. That is the first core thing you have. And if you start to look at those things with, okay, what is risk worth, for example? I mean, it's an endless discussion unless you actually have a nice software that starts to collect those numbers and present it for you in some way.
And basically, there we already went into the point I mentioned earlier. Besides the market data, of course, it would be nice, I think, as a USP to kind of create a blueprint for European die-cast foundries on internal benchmarking. So do I do everything right in my company? Do I have the right level of digitalization? Everything like that. But of course, this is again the topic of opening up. I mentioned this is so hard for so many, but it's necessary to open up. Like, we're in times where sort of we have to go to a purgatory. We have some companies have to die, point, period. And then only the ones that are brave enough to reevaluate themselves in a very revolutionary way will be strong enough to be part of the ones that survive. And part of the process, you can't go to a psychologist and then just say nothing and expect he has the solution for you. You have to open
so
up.
Who are you standing in? You're dropping your pants and you're standing there and say, hey, analyze me. But who is going to make the analyze? Who's going to analyze you?
I mean, this is maybe also a association or a joint force thing to at least develop a blueprint or sort of a boot camp, so to say, to evaluate your own company regarding certain features. Because what can you do? You can contract either like one of the real big names as consultants, where hey, they might have the right knowledge, but the hour rates are ridiculous. Then there's the something in between where probably they have a fair price, but you never know how good they really are because they're not the big names. And if you have somebody analyze this company for how good am I in digitalization, then the result could be that after 10 man days paid, you find out the person is just more talking than really providing value and having knowledge. Also bad scenario. So what I think is if associations there make a joint force to develop a blueprint or maybe work together with a company and say, hey, this is the basic digitalization bootcamp or process efficiency bootcamp for die casting foundries. And then it's developed, it's a blueprint, and it can be booked by the companies that want, or they can skip it. Maybe they're the ones that die. And you have sort of a quality seal for a certain thing that comes from an association.
That was the perfect way to enter what I wanted to say, because what you're saying was just focused on the digitalization, but if you expand it, it's basically like a quality management audit for your company processes. And when you go to a quality management audit, that just checks if you fill all the boxes, but doesn't check if it's efficient. And if you do it with an organization or association and build up a knowledge base, how quickly are your turn times from getting an offer in to sending back the quote? And all of these things, you have to communicate what you're doing in a very anonymous way. But again, if you want to succeed, you have to change something, adjust where you are at your biggest bottlenecks, and you cannot find it out by yourself. You have to see what are others doing, what are the benchmarks.
I think you will reveal a lot of things. You probably will kill a couple of ghosts that people in the
so many
believe
processes that are designed on long-term employees that just hog all the work, and you design the processes around them, which makes it very inefficient. But you have these people sitting in there, and
I mean, you have all the things I hear in this business, which I actually don't believe in. I mean, we start with the portfolio analysis on the article numbers. Which one are you actually making money on? And they might look very good in the first data set, but if you start to combine it with the complete company's data set, for example, how many express freight do we have per article number? I know this is not black and white, but
also,
you know, the
check
small
the production
things.
cost after 10,000 shots and check the production cost when you're near the end of the tool lifetime. And see how many more people you need to employ because you saved 10,000 in a tool manufacturing.
Here comes my idea of the digitalization, if you look at that perspective, because casting is about a lot of small details, about the shot curve, sleeve, alloy, tool making, etc., etc. And the tool is the critical thing. I allow it. I understand this. Don't kill me afterwards if you listen to this. But my point is, if you start to make mistakes in this flow, it might be that you have the wrong people. And how should you actually analyze and get to just, this is something we're not doing correctly? For example, heating, cooling in your tool. And I think you need quite advanced softwares where you can start to use that blueprint, if you like, Rafael, or anything else, to iron out why do we always have a shitty part with bad productivity and a high cost on exactly these things. To track them down that, maybe we don't have the best engineers in tool design, for example. Could be a case that you will find out. So, and everybody's whining, everybody's talking and saying, we cannot get any more money from our customers, and yada, yada, yada. But the fact is, if you start to look at those things, they will reveal a lot of things, but you need to have a systematic data approach to get them.
No, absolutely right. And Fabian, coming back to your statement, I like that a lot. It's like any ISO certification tells you have a process, but it doesn't give a benchmark how efficient is your process. And this is what we really need, because basically that's the crucial thing about the current situation. Is it easy to spend money when you see that you have a little in your purse? No, it's the hardest situation, but it's just that situation when you have little money in your purse where you have to make the right investment decisions. We can take that famous Nathan Rothschild quote where it says the time to invest is when blood is on the streets. But that's when it's the hardest to do the things. So what do you need? You need the justification. You need somebody that tells you there's really potential in the investment. There your process is weak, or there you have the wrong set of optimization in your production, and then you can skip the hurdle and say, hey, I see there's not a lot of money on my bank account, but that's that's the point where I have to give it to an investment to really prepare to survive in the future, and then it comes back multiplied.
Absolutely. You need to be transparent to iron out where are the bottlenecks. There's always a bottleneck, and you have to find out, is it the sales process that you don't get enough parts in, or you don't talk to the right people to get the parts, or solve big enough problems that they're considering you to solve these problems and all these things? Or is it a production issue that you don't have the efficiency, you have bad tools that produce a lot of defects? Is it a design failure, or is it a planning issue that you're setting up everything way too late because you get from one delay into another? And for these things, you need to be transparent and brutally open.
I think it's a culture problem. Sorry for now getting me started on something absolute out
You
of
can
script
also add
here.
leadership to that.
That's the thing. I was a purchaser once, and I had a budget of something between 40 and 50 million euros. That's not small, right? I was 27 something, and this was in telecom, so everything was jumping up and we grew like crazy, and I had a deep problem with one supplier because I never get any answers about deliveries. And I was whining in a conference room saying, you have to do something. You need more people doing planning, because we have a factory with 1,500 workers, with circuit boards and cables, whatever. So we need to know if we are getting 5,000 or 8,000 next Friday, because otherwise we have a full shift during the weekend to pay for by regulations. And then nothing comes. How should I control it? And you can hear, I was upset. And they, okay. And then we had lunch, and then after lunch they were proud to present that they bought a new boiler machine for 800,000 euros. That investment machine, that was easy because it was tangible, it was hardware, it was easy for them to see something. My problem was not their capacity. My problem was I didn't know what their capacity would give me. That was a soft issue. That was about information, letting someone in, putting someone in my face to act like the key accountant, That was difficult. That was very difficult. And I think this is the culture. And here comes my conclusion. You were saying, Rafael, a lot of companies within our industry in Europe will die. I think that's the ones that doesn't have the culture. Yeah, but they will go out of business.
But some.
Hey, I went through the prospect list with my distribution this week for the forecast of 2025. Looks good for us, but many suspects have vanished, especially in Europe. And these are the guys, they have their own culture to follow into the future. I'm sorry, but they will vanish. They will be bought up, going in bankruptcy or something else. But the brand names will step out of the market in 2024, 2025, 2026. You'll see the mass of them getting out. So if to focus on something, you have to have the right culture to sit there and listen to ideas like this. We might be wrong, the three of us. But one thing is certain, you have to do something.
Yes, absolutely. But a good point, because the worst manager is the one that doesn't take decisions.
It's better to take a decision than revise it 1 year later, but just do something.
Wrong decisions, no problem. No decisions are the real problem.
Yeah, exactly. But then it comes back to the culture, because if you take a wrong decision and you got scolded for the rest of your career in that company because it did one thing that was wrong, then I really understand why some managers don't take any decisions. And I think if you want to get ahead, that's the first thing. You have to be allowed to make mistakes when deciding, because when you move, you can always readjust your course. If you're stationary, there is no course.
Ask me as a hunter, what is the easiest target, the sitting still one or the moving one?
And the funny thing with the decisions, it comes all back to the topic we started with, the big data.
Yes.
Take your decision based on data. Then it's not even hard to take a decision.
There's a gap here. I mean, it's not lack of data. It's the sorting of the data and to transform it into a cockpit view that I, as a manager in a foundry, working like hell. I mean, they are. But I need 20 minutes a week to check, okay, what has happened? What is the view from my cockpit? This is why this is so damn smart. Sorry for swearing here, but it's so damn smart to do it. But the thing is, why do we pay money to founder organizations where they do absolutely nothing? You get trade statistics from the last year, 3 months into the new year. I mean, that is so reactive, so it makes me laugh, actually. You want to know what happened with inflation rate in China in Q1. That you want to know. Second week in April. You want to know if the import tariffs have anything meaningful effect on the imports to Europe, for example. That's the thing you should base your decision on, not a yearly summary of the tons casted in aluminum alloys.
Yeah, that's useless. Also, these statistics. What is the climate? How do purchasers feel about the industry? Who cares about that?
Yeah, the number of new parts in development for SOP next year. That is a key point. And then you can say that, there's no point that we can get the information. Are you sure? Because maybe it lies in the interest of the big purchasing organization to actually have something left in Europe. So maybe they will start to share, okay, between 15 and 20. I mean, the category managers, they know this. If they want an industry around them to support them, maybe they need to share a little bit. And who's better to negotiate that sharing than a trade organization? That's their jobs.
Also, then it's not a compliance thing because it's available to everyone that takes part in that initiative. And it's not like they give information out to certain Foundries colleagues they know for a long time.
They can do it anonymously. I mean, who cares if it's a BMW, Volkswagen, Ericsson, Scania truck? Just the knowledge, is it going up or down, the number of articles number, where I have a chance? Then you can be very German and say, yeah, but then we need to know if it's 1 kilogram, 5 kilogram, 20 kilogram. Let's start with something. Then it will be more fine granulated in the future. Believe me, this is a culture problem in our industry. But if you're not big enough to have your own cockpit, then I'm sorry for you.
So basically for joint presence, the biggest advantage would be get good data and have a culture that allows for the data to be used.
Yes.
Yeah, or another finding, which I wanted to say, maybe if you then say only bigger entities can manage the processes they need, maybe the end of the discussion is we have to merge as crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, is that bad? I mean,
it's bad for the owners of the family businesses and everything, because they sort of lose their identity. But in general, if you look at it more from industry, or what do we really want? Yeah, we want some a strong industry and a BIP growing and everything. We want jobs. What difference does it make if it's a fair paid job with an interesting content if I work for Mr. X or XYZ AG, a share company?
Yeah, but I would like to take it from another perspective. Let's say that you have a car company, you're making quite expensive cars. You realize that someone from just taking a pick here, San Francisco or California, is actually redesigning his car all the time. And you start to realize with great fear that the number of article number per vehicle is going down, down, down. We see that these electrical things that people like, despite we do good diesels here, is actually picking up in sales. Now he's a Chinese colleague called Build Your Future, for example, is getting into the game. Okay, what do they have? Well, Build Your Future has 2.8 million cars, and then the California guy is doing 1.8. So all of a sudden, it starts to actually chew up this segment. What do I need to do? I need to develop fast as hell. How do I develop fast as hell? Well, I turn around ideas into product and components in a very quick fashion. Then you start to realize that tool that gets stuck in a harbor on the other side of the globe is actually hindering your development. Two things has to happen. First of all, the power of purchasing and quality processes and quality management has to take a step down and let creativity and entrepreneurship grow to take the first position in importance. Second of all, you need to be surrounded with people that actually can help you to develop your product fast. We're speaking about free versions of the same article numbers in every year. This is telecom for you. This is how telecom works. It's constant changing. And this is something that the car makers need to understand and address in Europe, because this is how they do it in China. They do it in Korea. They do it in America. And if you think that I read an article about this, you're totally wrong. I work with these people. I know this. I feel it every day. So don't buy McKinsey, listen to the podcast instead. We give you the answers to a lot of things.
If you want to have a McKinsey bill, we put in our IBAN number down there so you can send us the money.
Yeah, no problem. I like money. And you should know that I actually respect McKinsey like crazy, because I met all these fancy firms through my years, and McKinsey is the only one I respect. Yeah, having said that, sorry for that rant, guys, but I kind of feel that you can blame the founders for a lot of things, but someone nurtured them into what they are. And the ones to blame or to cherish for it is actually the guys buying from them. And I spent more time with the quality guys and purchasing than I spent with designers. That has to be wrong.
Mm. No, absolutely. But on the other hand, then you said that basically from end of the Second World War up until Dieselgate, it was a fairy tale world. Like numbers were always going up, growth was there. Let's hope that the saying is true, that hard times create or tough times create hard men create easy times, and then easy times make soft men, and soft men create hard times. So basically, you have to look back, and maybe the constant growth has made us a little bit lazy, a little bit weak. And let's hope the big challenges that we're facing now makes us agile, strong, tough again, and then we will be in the position to go back renewed, refreshed, to create nice and easy times again.
That sounds like a perfect wish. And I hope that our industry does that, but I will claim that the ones are whining the loudest will be the ones unable to change. I hope that number goes down a lot and we have a flourishing industry with a good data set to take decisions and leadership on.
Yeah, you could take us for an example. I mean, we were a Foundry starting 1978, and I was now around this process in 2019. We had the idea to move out the components, start to build machines. In 2020, we took the decision. 2023, we were done. These are long times, and then I think we're pretty agile as a company. Imagine the discussions we had to have with other shareholders and stuff. Imagine that. I mean, we spent hours, days, and weeks discussing this. Can we actually survive when doing machines instead of components? I don't know how many Excel charts I produced during this time, but probably 100. So these changes are not that easy. But you have to dare to take them, because otherwise I can promise one thing: we have been bankrupt 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a big threat. And if now you all have the cards in your hands to change the situation, to do something, to act, to avoid that situation. But if you're just waiting year after year, you did card gets taken away one after another until it's all in someone else's hands. And I think that's to avoid. And I hope we could give some ideas, some interest for what a joint presence can really bring to the whole industry. And that now it's time to act up and get it implemented. And I think that's the ending for concluding this podcast.
Thank you very much for being with us, Rafael. Love the discussion, and I look forward to continue it, maybe over a beer in Germany when we meet the next time, or if it will be at the Eurogas Circle next occasion in this summer. But thank you for being here with us.
It was an absolute pleasure. I had a lot of fun, and thanks to you guys for having me.
You're welcome. And for all our listeners and viewers, don't forget to subscribe. And then we see us in the next podcast episode. Bye.
Sayonara.
Goodbye.